If you're a medical professional challenged with financial stress, learn how to get fiscally fit fast today. If you're earning well, but you still feel uncertain about your money, you're not alone and you're not doing anything wrong. In this episode of Wealth Prescription Weekly, we'll break down practical financial wellness strategies designed specifically for medical professionals so you can reduce your stress, gain clarity, and take confident steps with your money. So let's rev up your finances and get you fiscally fit. And as a free bonus, take my free 2-minute assessment. The link is in the comments and on the banner, and it's going to tell you exactly where you are on your financial path in less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can get physically fit, getting your money world in order and setting yourself up for success. This is a subject that I talk about often when I do volunteer webinars for companies and hospitals to help their staff make progress on their financial journey, just like I'm doing for you. So as a medical professional, you treat physical ailments, and you may see that stress is making physical ailments worse, but you may not think about how people worrying about money or money concerns is adding to their stress. So today we're going to talk about a financial wellness prescription to help you either get it in order or add to what you've already currently done. Getting fiscally fit. Well, first we have to overcome our challenges. Yes, our challenges. And so what I'm showing here are cogs in a machine. Notice that the cogs are working together. They're not working separately. And you want to include all of these. So planning for tomorrow, well, that's hard when we're living in today and the costs in the world are increasing. So I get it. I'm living it too, but understand that your current self is looking after your future self. I'm going to say that again. Your current self is looking after your future self. So we want to follow that plan that we set for ourselves. And we're also going to talk today about increasing our cash flow, reducing our taxes, and building an emergency fund. Are our investments set up to mitigate potential losses? Are you seeing a theme here? It's all about what's at risk. How can you be set up to maintain your current lifestyle in the future? Well, our taxes are due every year, typically tied to our income. And are you doing planning as well as preparation? So I've heard statistics on how many doctors and medical professionals do their own taxes. And my question is, why? Why are you doing that? You're a great surgeon. Why are you doing tax returns? Okay. So what I would say is I'm a financial professional and I do not do my own taxes. Let me say that again. I'm a financial professional. I do not do my own taxes. Why? Because for the cost of hiring a professional, that this is their specialty, just like a medical specialty, I save more than what I pay them every year to prepare it. Why wouldn't I do that? Yes, I still have to put the information together. I put it together in an orderly fashion, but once I submit that to them, it enables them to be able to ask me even better questions so that I save more money year over year than what I'm paying them. Estate planning. What is your plan? If you don't have a plan, you've got a plan. It's actually the government's plan. So do you want the government involved in your stuff, or do you want it to happen quickly and easily without government involvement? Do you want to leave money to philanthropy? How best do I optimize that for not only for myself, but also for the charity? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself. This is your building of security. Okay, so I'm not going to lie to you. Getting control of your finances is hard work, but it gets easier when you have the right mindset. Our best traits become habits, and we get in the habit of making sound financial decisions for our financial future, then we become stronger. So it's up to you to make the determination. I'm going to get control of my money, and I'm going to use it in the best ways to meet my goals. So once you adopt this philosophy, then you've taken an active role in building your financial future. So honestly, there's not really anything that can stand in your way. Once you make up your mind, you set your plan and you get started. Okay. The important part to understand is that nothing is going to change until you do. When you look at this slide, none of these things seem to be working for our benefit. So let's talk about change. The last 5 years especially have created a new retirement reality. Many of us are going to have to work longer to meet our financial needs. So for some people, that's fine. Many baby boomers don't see themselves retiring at all, and some prefer to transition to more of a work-life balance. However, there's still some of us that want to go do what we want to do in our retirement. So during the recession, Americans experienced an unprecedented loss of wealth. Okay, in 2008 alone, the average loss in the market was 38%. I looked at a lot of accounts, and on average, it took 9 years for them to recover. Lots of reasons for that. But again, they didn't have what they thought that they were going to have. So this means that many of us are going to have to work into our 70s. And the good news is that if there's any generation that can do it, the baby boomers can. So our average life expectancy is roughly 80 to 85 years of age. That gives us a cushion of some time to recuperate from some of our losses if we have some in the next few years. So that being said, we've acquired new financial obligations, which will challenge our fiscal fitness. Our children are struggling, and many of us are trying to support them as they face a difficult job market. So also we have to contend with what can be a volatile stock market and economic aspects such as inflation. So one of the more important challenges to embrace is the role that Social Security plays in our future. The program has always been intended to offer supplemental income throughout retirement. This is meant to aid us, not to support us. Okay, there's a misunderstanding there. Did you know that Social Security was only meant to cover 40% of our expenses? It was never designed to cover all of our expenses. Okay, so therefore, we have to increase our personal and retirement savings. And now that's easier said than done. Personal savings rates are 5%, well below the recommended 10 or 15% of your net income. So this is attributed to wage depreciation, underemployment, and the overall economy. So it's easy for us to get back into our spending habits, but this economy and inflation is a teachable moment. We've all had to tighten our belts and look at our finances completely differently. So we've got the opportunity, as things get better, to place a serious focus on wealth creation, providing that we make informed financial decisions. Okay, informed financial decisions. So this means taking on less debt and putting more money into savings and getting that money working for us. So the high cost of credit, we've talked about that in recent episodes, and getting out of debt is a super important strategy. Okay. So doing so allows you to explore a multitude of financial opportunities, and it also helps you save money for future financing that you may require. So why are we getting out of debt? One, we don't want to pay the interest, and two, it gives us money to either apply to lifestyle, but more importantly, saving for the future. So the less debt that you carry, the less risk you represent to the lenders. So let's take a deeper dive at how debt jeopardizes your finances. So first, we have a credit card with a $2,000 balance. Okay, that's the far left column with a green. We see an individual who represents a good lending risk. They've got a 16% interest rate. And next to that, we've got a column, the second column, we see someone who's high risk. Thereby, they are charged like a 29% interest rate. Okay, so paying the minimum payment each month for the person with a 16% interest rate would repay a total of $49.94. So $2,000 back for the principal, $2,994 in interest. Still doesn't sound great, does it? Well, the person that's got poor credit is going to pay back $8,742. So that's $6,742 in interest. That's a huge difference. Absolutely huge difference. So if you're that second person, large amount of money that's been taken away from your financial plan, whether it's your current living, whether it's what you want to buy, whether it's saving for your future, that's a huge amount of money that's out of that pot. Now, if you think that's startling, let's take a look at the same two individuals' mortgages. Okay, this is just an example for easy math. So mortgage rates keep changing. I picked two numbers. I chose a 5% and a 7%, and I used a $200,000 mortgage just because that's easy math. If you got 400 or 600,000, just multiply this out. Okay, so on a $200,000 mortgage at 5%, a person with good credit would pay back $412,931. Okay. So the person with poor credit would pay back $526,063. Okay. That's a difference of $113,000. Just think what that money could do to help build that second person's financial future. Now, I realize that this is a simple example. Houses are more expensive than $200,000 in the rates, but you get the gist of it. You can multiply that out as you see fit. Okay. So getting out of debt, there's a couple of debt repayment strategies you can employ. One of the more important methods is the debt snowball method. So this is where you commit extra funds, extra payments to pay off your accounts. So what you're doing is you're starting with the smallest balance first. We're talking about that being a snowball. And while you're paying the minimum payments on the larger debts. Now, we're not saying you're not paying the minimum payments on the larger debts, but you're paying off the small one. You pay that off, then you pay off the next one, all the while making the minimum payments on the others. So the modified snowball method, I like this one a little bit better, is because our approach is that we are going for the debt that's got the highest interest rate. So sometimes when you've got some of those home shopping, credit cards, things like that, they may have a 30% interest rate, whereas your Chase Visa may have a 20% rate. So what we're doing is we're going after the highest interest rate first. We're putting any extra money towards that while still making the other payments. And the reason I like that better is because it's the higher interest, meaning it's costing you more money. Okay. So if debt's causing you significant strain and you can't get that under control, you may want to talk to some credit counseling. Okay. There's local programs, there's national programs. And my number one piece of advice here is to read the fine print before you sign anything, right? Lots of these agencies out there, lots of them do different ways. Lots of them can consolidate debt, but make sure you understand exactly what they're going to do, how it affects your credit report, and if there's any cost involved. Gaining control through budgeting. Okay, so to take care of your debt and build a foundation of wealth creation, you have to take control of your immediate financial situation. So this starts with a budget, okay? And if it makes it easier to process, some people don't like that word budget, they completely freak out, call it a spending plan. How am I spending my money? Okay, so we're saying, how are you spending your money, but how do you offset that by what's coming in? So what's coming in versus what's going out? Okay, ask yourself some hard questions. Can I afford my lifestyle? I've seen this many times. I have clients that are in this boat, clients that we've gotten out of this boat, but can I afford my lifestyle? Do I need to increase my income to support my lifestyle? Do I need to increase my income for other things? Okay, what can I live without? Is what I'm buying nice or necessary? Do I have to have it, or is it a nice to have? I want to dig a little bit deeper into some ideas for increasing your cash flow. Medical professionals do the best job I've seen on finding side gigs. A little something you can do on the side that increases your income. For some of these things, you don't even have to leave the house. You're using your computer, you're doing some different stuff, and you're making income. So if you've got one, maybe you're dedicating that income for something. Maybe you're using it to pay off debt. Maybe you're using it to save for retirement. Maybe you're using it for something else. So you're highly trained, you're highly in demand. Find something that works for you. Okay, so one of the easiest ways to give yourself a raise is to take a look at your tax refund. Okay, if you're getting a few $1,000s back every year, you are giving the government a 0% loan for the year. I'm guessing that wasn't your intention. It was never my intention, and I never thought about it this way. So think about that. Let's say you're getting back $5,000, $10,000 from the government every year as a tax return. We liked that. We liked the idea that we could go on vacation or something else. But what's happened is that money has been working for them. It's not working for you. And what we know is the cost of things was less a year ago than it is now. So not only has it potentially cost you your interest on your credit cards, but the money's worth less than it was a year ago. So let's look at that. And you say, well, how do I fix that? Well, we've done a whole episode on that, but basically you're going to talk to your HR department to determine how you can adjust your deductions. Okay. Just work with them to identify ways that you can save on their services. You might be surprised at how much cash you'll free up. This is one of the things that I do for companies, businesses, and hospitals, you name it. We can always find $1,000 to $4,000 per employee in a company. So we always do that, right? And it's because we don't see the money that's leaking out of our own buckets. Companies don't see the money that's leaking out of their buckets. So do some hunting on your own and find your own savings. So there's even some apps out there that can help you with subscriptions. You may be paying for stuff that you thought you canceled or that you didn't even know you were paying for. Okay, so obviously what I've just explained is an overview, but what do you do right now? Well, right now you become the master of your own financial destiny. It's time to take a hard look at your income versus your expenses. In order to meet your goals, you're going to need as much money as you can raise. So you have to identify additional strategies to increase your income. How? There's plenty of ways, but you have to determine what's best for you. Creating your spending plan, examining your income and expenses is going to go a long way to helping you establish that emergency fund I mentioned earlier. I don't know about you, but I believe in Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Therefore, you have to prepare for the unexpected. I know, Allie, how do I plan for the unexpected? Well, the easiest way is to have cash on hand. So your emergency fund should consist of savings equivalent to anywhere between 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Now, I know you can go online and look at all this stuff and they're going to say, oh, you should have a year, you should have 2 years. Well, here's the deal. If you don't have 1 month, you need to get 1 month. If you've got 1 month, you need to get 2 months. Get to the point where you've got at least 3, going for 6, and I would feel much better about what you've got. Because here's also the problem is that when you have an emergency, the last thing that you want to think about is money, right? You are in the middle of an emergency, whether it's a medical emergency, a car accident, whatever it is, you need to know that you can take care of what you need to take care of for a period of time and deal with the emergency. Okay. So many of us live by the safety myth of, oh, that's never going to happen to me. Well, surprise, emergencies can happen to anyone, anytime. Look at your emergency room. It's filled with emergencies. None of those people planned on that. They've now got a medical expense that they've got to deal with. Okay. So we know that these things happen. People get sick. We deal with unexpected expenses and we face the very real reality of unemployment, or job changes. Okay. So to weather these storms, you're going to need savings to get you through. As these emergencies can happen anytime, you're going to want to keep these funds in an account that you can access quickly should the need arise. Okay, so what I will say here is that your 401k, your 403b is not your emergency fund. That is savings for retirement. That is looking after your future self, and you usually can't get to it very fast. And I promise you, you can't get as much out of there as you may think that you can. So don't use that for the emergency. So my approach is if you had an emergency on a Thursday or Friday, you could pay for it by Monday or Tuesday, okay, the following week, and it's not being charged on a credit card. So think about that. You could pay for it versus paying 20% in interest that may be on your credit card for a long time. I've had a number of people that because they didn't have an emergency fund, all of that went on their credit card, and it took them a year or two to pay it off. So the emergency ended up costing them 20 to 40% more than they thought it was going to. Okay. So there's a number of savings accounts that offer you a high interest rate than your local bank may offer. So conduct an internet search and look for a high interest yield account. But again, the key point here on an emergency fund is when you have an emergency, you can actually get to the money. A lot of people are asking, when is the best time to start investing? So this isn't a trick question. It's pretty simple, really. The best answer is when you get your first paycheck. But I'm guessing most of the people that are watching this are way past their first paycheck. But as you notice on this chart, I want you to look and see what the difference is in starting in your 20s versus starting in your 40s. On the far left, that's the difference in a year. Okay, that's the difference in a year that if they started in 20 versus 21. So if they start at 21, they'd have 1.85 million. And if they started at age 20, they'd have 2 million. So look at what 1 year is costing them. It's over $100,000. Same money, but it costs them $100,000. As you get later on in life, we notice that those numbers drop exponentially. Look to the far right. If you started saving at 30 versus 20, you're going to generate about half the wealth that you would if you started a decade early. And if you started in your 40s, you generate about a third of the wealth you would have if we'd started in our 30s. So that's not to say if you're older, you shouldn't be saving now. It just means that we have to do more. Right? We're making more money. We need to save more to catch up. So there's ways to make up for lost time, and it's important to talk to a financial professional to determine your best course of action. Okay, so we've discussed a lot of information today, and some of which may seem intimidating. The good news is that there are people out there that can help you get to the next level, but it starts with you. It's time to take stock of your financial life. For instance, ask yourself these simple questions. When was the last time that you made a budget? Do you have a debt repayment strategy? How much of your income are you saving? Do you have an emergency fund? Have you talked to a financial professional? These are only some of the questions that you need to ask when you're determining your financial course. So we've talked a lot today about getting fiscally fit. And if you'd like a quick call to discuss any of this, or if you've been thinking about your money in retirement, or you're tired of thinking about it, or you don't know where you are, or maybe where to start, or even if you're looking for a second opinion, just like a medical diagnosis, it's probably time for a quick calibration check on what you're doing. So we can do that pretty easily on a quick 15-minute triage call, and we can talk about it. So don't overthink it. Quit overthinking. Stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. Okay. I recently did this call for a medical professional and found $9,200 a year without even getting into my process. Yes, I have a process. I'm an engineer. I can't help it. I have a process. So think about that. $9,200 a year for a 15-minute investment seems like a great return, don't you think? So that's what I love about what I do. This is how we can get things moving and set you up for a great year and beyond. So let's do this. See you soon.